We're going to do some triangle proofs. A couple things that should be really helpful. Always look at the given and label on your picture whatever's given, and make sure you have 3 pieces of information labeled on your triangle. So in this case, we're given that angle MQP is congruent to angle NPQ, and angle MPQ is congruent to NQP. We need a third piece of information, but this side length, segment QP, has to be congruent in both triangles because it's the same side. So that would make these 2 triangles congruent by angle, and then a side, and then angle. We already said that the 2 angles were congruent in the given, but we still need to state that side, and that's called the reflexive property. And now, because we stated those 3 pieces of information and saw that the 2 triangles were congruent by angle, side, angle, we can state in the proof that the 2 triangles are congruent. This next one, segment AB, is congruent to segment CB. D is the midpoint of AC. So if D is the midpoint of segment AC, then D is right in the middle of segment AC. So that means that it's cutting it in half, and this segment is congruent to this segment. We still need one more piece of information, but just like the last one, this side is shared, so it's congruent in both triangles. Now that we stated those 3 pieces of information, these 2 triangles are congruent by side, side, side. For this next one, angle B is congruent to angle D, and segment AC bisects angle BCD. Now be careful, it's bisecting the angle. So if you're looking at angle BCD, it doesn't say it's bisecting the segment, but it's cutting the angle in half. Half of the angle is congruent to the other half of the angle. We still need one more piece of information. We can't say that these 2 angles are congruent because we don't have a reason. But just like the last ones, this segment is congruent in both triangles because it's shared by both triangles. So now these 2 triangles are congruent by angle, angle, side. This last one, B is the midpoint of segment AE. So if B is the midpoint of this segment, then it's cutting it in half, meaning these 2 segments are equal. And B is also the midpoint of CD, so it's cutting that in half, meaning these 2 segments are equal. Now we have 2 pieces of congruent information. We need one more. We don't know for sure that AD and CE are congruent, but these 2 angles are congruent because they're vertical angles, and vertical angles are always congruent. This now makes the 2 triangles congruent by side, angle, side. And finally, we're trying to prove that segment AD is congruent to segment CE, but because we already proved that the triangles are congruent, then remember, corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So if you have 2 congruent triangles, every part of both congruent triangles are congruent.